Welcome back, everyone. My next guest is Meagan J. Meehan. She's an author, abstract artist, journalist, curator, and founder of the Conscious Perceptionalism art practice. Welcome, Meagan. Thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here. It's an honor to be featured. And I hope that you will enjoy my pieces. They are very crazy. They're very abstract, but they exist only to give people joy. That is the whole point of my work. If you look at my work and you smile and it makes your day a little bit better, then it's done its job. That's its only purpose. So the two pieces that I have behind me, I have this large piece on the wall. Now this one's a little darker than some of my other pieces, but it's got like a kind of fancy dignity to it. This one is called Symbiosis. It is a sculptural wall hanging, as are most of my pieces. It is made with a variety of media. So we have glass, we have clay, we have metal, we have wood. And I can actually bring the camera a little bit closer to show you guys how this one looks. So this one was featured at Art Expo in Manhattan a couple of years ago. And you can see the way that it's kind of hard to control the camera, but you can see the way that it kind of pops off the wall, 360, and it can also be hung in any direction. I'm going to show you that with some of my smaller pieces later, but none of my pieces have any definitive left, right, up, or down. Now, this is a much smaller piece. This one is called Bon Appetit in the Funhouse. And this one is, again, a sculptural wall hanging. Let me see if I can show you how much this one pops off the wall. So this one actually pops off the wall about 7 inches, because this is the highest point here. So this piece, again, a very mixed media. It's made with clay, it's made with wood, it's made with polymer clay, wood, paint, everything that you can imagine, rhinestones. I like mixing both quote unquote high and low mediums. So this one of the things that makes this interesting is that whereas most of my pieces are completely abstract and there's no sensible shapes in them at all, this one actually has a little bit of a food theme. So I work a lot with the toy industry, and I got this little toy set of blocks, and it was kind of a dessert theme set. So here I recycled a cupcake. There's 2 little cakes here. There's another cupcake, a donut, and they all found their way into this piece. So I think that this would be a really fun piece to hang up at like a trendy cafe or something like that. So now for the conscious perceptionalism art movement, or the art practice, I should say, the point of this movement is to create art that can be strong in any direction. So it basically can be hung in any direction. And when you're creating the pieces, you're not thinking this is the top, this is the bottom, this is the right, this is the left. So I can give you an example. So this is one of my smaller pieces. So this is in a collection that is very much a tiny collection just because it's only 8 by 11. And then it pops off the wall about maybe 3 inches. I guess this would be the highest point to show you. And then this one, this is my vocabulary collection. So aside from being an abstract artist, I am also working on a PhD right now. And my main area of interest are using like entertainment education practices to teach advanced vocabulary words. So all of the pieces in this collection, I initially made 12 of them and I have 11 left, one sold. So every one of these pieces has a very fancy name. So for example, this one is called Ensorceling Ataraxy, which basically means bewitching serenity or calmness. And when you buy these pieces, I actually have little tabs in the back printed that explain it gives their title, and then it explains what the title means and what it basically translates into. So it's kind of like a little vocabulary lesson with like very, very fancy words, as well as a piece of art. So these are also rigged to basically be hung in any direction. So for example, I consider this part, in my mind, this is the top part of it, but that doesn't necessarily mean that I am right. I could turn it this way, and I could turn it this way, and I could turn it this way, and it could be hung from any direction. So it's really up to whoever purchases the piece, what way do they want to hang it? They also have the option to change it up every couple of days if they want to, because you'll find that when you look at it from different angles, you see different things. That's why I call this conscious perceptionalism, because you were consciously making pieces that can be perceived differently or intended to be perceived differently, depending on how they are directed or how they are hung. This is another one from that collection. Now, this again, very dark colors. I thought that this was an interesting mix of colors black, brown, red, orange. It's just something that's not really seen normally. And this one is called equivocal anomaly, which basically means ambiguous or uncertain deviation or difference. And so basically, because it's different and I wasn't really sure how it was going to turn out, I thought that that was a cute title for it. And again, it can be hung from any direction. And I've had a lot of people tell me that they actually do like these darker pieces, interestingly enough, because I am primarily known for my colors. And this one again hangs off the wall, pops off the wall about maybe, I see 2.5 inches here. And this is again made with clay and paint, and there's some little acrylic beads on it. And then finally in this collection, I'll show you a third one here. And this one is just an example of a much brighter piece, a much bigger, brighter piece. And this one is called ephemeral propriety, which basically means short or brief conformity or condition. So a short condition or a brief condition or a short conformity, a short period of conformity. And I guess that I named it that because this one kind of reminds me of the sky and the way that the clouds are always changing colors. Or changing, what am I saying? Changing shapes and also changing colors depending on how the sun hits them, right? So the sky is always changing, clouds are always changing, the colors of the sky are always changing. So it just kind of fit that mold. And again, these are actually going to be at Art Expo this year, which is normally held in April. And then because of the virus, we had to change it to November of this year. And they only are $40 because I wanted to make art that was affordable. Like whereas some of these pieces are more complicated, so therefore they're more expensive. But some of the standing sculptures that I do also adhere to the conscious perceptionalism practice because they're actually created on turntables. So you can turn them and see them from all different directions. So I have one, for example, that's called Alliance 4 Seasons, and it is spring, summer, fall, and winter. And it's a standing sculpture. It's on a turntable. And as you turn it, you see the seasons changing. So, and again, it's very abstract interpretation of the seasons because most of my work is completely crazy and abstract. Very rare occasions, I will kind of go a little bit more into pop art or a little bit even kitsch kind of. Like, for example, this one that has a lot of those little cupcakes and such that I showed you. That's really one of the only pieces where I have identifiable things. The only other time that I really have identifiable pieces or elements in my artwork, but basically the only other time that I ever have identifiable elements in my art is when I'm doing a piece for the Wreath Interpretation Show. And this takes place every year at the Arsenal Gallery in Central Park in Manhattan. And every year they basically ask artists to come together and create a wreath, or like a Christmas wreath, but a wreath that is just inspired by Christmas wreaths. So it has to be something circular and something that is wreath inspired. And every year I have entered that show. And last year, because of the virus, it was digital, but I did enter the show. And therefore, I created this little wreath. Now, this is totally different from my regular art. It's really more cutesy, but it's basically a teddy bear picnic. So we have these teddy bears, and they are sitting on this checkered blanket, and they are eating little food. So as you can see, I have they're actually little erasers, but little foods, and they're all holding them in their hands. And there's little tea sets all around them. And I've had a lot of people tell me that they really like this. So if anybody would like one of these, this one's for sale, and I do make them custom as well. And I just think that this is really cute, and it just kind of shows how, even though I normally stick strictly to abstract, it's kind of fun to go outside the comfort zone sometimes.
So tell me, Meagan, what inspired you to begin this practice? Like, how did it all come about?
Well, I grew up going to art museums, and I've always loved the art of Moreau and Calder. And it's funny because when I looked at their work when I was younger, specifically Moreau, I always thought, some of his works are landscapes, for example, but I always thought that it was so cool to look at them. Like when I had the art books of them, if you turned it around and looked at it through different angles, you saw different things. And so that always intrigued me because I knew that when he created his pieces, he didn't intend for them to be turned. But I always thought, I wonder if anybody's done a piece that's intended to be turned like that. Or what would happen if I tried to make a piece and I would see if it could stick on a wall and be turned on the wall. And I just really started to think, what would happen? So I gave it a try. And it's really been a lot of fun to work with that. But I was really inspired by just looking at a lot of art when I was growing up and thinking, the magic of abstract art is that everybody sees something different in it. but what happens if we had a piece that not only would everybody look at it from one angle and see something different, but then what if you could turn it with the same person, see different things? And I just thought that it was a lot of fun. And I also thought that it's kind of symbolic of how important it is to be able to see things through other people's points of view, to view things from other perspectives, other angles. It really expands your mind, it opens your mind. And I think that that's really what art is about. And it's just a fun way to approach, abstract art practices where you can have that mix of you, because to really appreciate abstract art, you have to kind of be willing to accept stuff that's like out there. And I just think that this kind of brings it to the next level. And it's fun. It's something that I created, and it's something that I'm in the process of trademarking the term, but it is something that I'd like to share with other artists, because there's no reason that people of all ages can't enjoy this.
You're right. You're right. So now I know that you used some recycled items. Do you use it in every piece? Is that part of this practice as well?
Typically, yes. Typically, I always use pieces that are in some way recycled. Like, for example, in this one right here, I don't know if you can see them, but there's bottle caps in these. So we have bottle caps from Coke bottles. I have a bottle cap from a nail polish, because of course I do my own nails as well. So I use a lot of nail polish remover. So whenever I'm done with that, I use the caps. This is the cap from a Nutella bottle. I use a lot of like bits and pieces that I find, like beads and that, like if a piece of jewelry breaks, for example, I'll take the beads and save them and recycle them into pieces. Like, for example, here, there's a couple of little broken jewelry pieces in this one. And then in this one right here, some of the recycled pieces, these were recycled from an old game that I had. And I just they were such a pretty color, I just recycled them. And then there's two recycled beads here. And actually the glass that's on this is also recycled. It's glass that I got from frames when I make frames, that would, for example, see this pink frame in the background to do this piece? This came with glass in it. And the glass that was in this frame is the glass that I used to put on the top layer of this. So I like recycle pieces, and I try not to throw anything away if possible, because I just find that you can make a lot of cool stuff, like stuff that people would normally just throw away, can actually be made into some like really beautiful pieces of art. And it's just good. I'm very much into the environment, and I'm very much into and I feel like recycling initiatives can really make the world a brighter, happier place, because you're not just only recycling and making the earth healthier, but you're also creating these art pieces that hopefully will make your day brighter when you look at them. So yeah, so recycling is definitely part of it. Found objects.
When you're creating one of your pieces, do you like find something that inspires you, or do you have an idea in your head and you draw it out first? Like, what's your process?
Both. It really depends. Like, sometimes I'll get an idea for something and I know, oh, I have to write this down, and sometimes I just like really rough sketches. It's just like, I know I want it to be this color, and I want there to be like an element here, an element here, and I'll just sketch it out really fast. Other times I'll just pick up, like, for example, when I was making this one, this is actually the first piece in that vocabulary collection. And the way that I started this one, I knew I wanted to do a collection on these canvases just because they're inexpensive and therefore I could price them lower. And I knew I wanted to do a collection like this, but I didn't really know how to start. So I just took a bit of, and this clay that I use, by the way, this is air dry clay. It's very, very lightweight. So that way it's not heavy. These are very light pieces. But I started out by just sitting down and sculpting some of this clay, and it's white clay, and then I painted it. But it all started out by just sculpting this element. And when I liked the way that the element came out, I decided, oh, this is pretty. What color am I going to make this? And then I decided to play with kind of unusual color schemes. Like, I pair red and orange a lot, or yellow and orange a lot, for example. But I don't always pair yellow and orange with light blue specifically. So I decided to pair those colors. And then I knew, oh, I made this piece the centerpiece. This was the first piece that I created. And then the rest of it kind of got drawn up around it. But to do these pieces, for example, I did lay down the piece of clay and I tried to figure out, oh, where do I want this to be? And then from there, I went in with a pencil, and I actually went in with a yellow pencil and an orange pencil. So the colors would conform completely. And I traced at that point, the blank canvas to know, oh, I want this to be here, I want this to be there. And that's kind of how I got this set up. So this was a mix of kind of free, the artist equivalent of free writing, like when I was just sculpting the piece, but then there was also more of like a drafting process when I got to the actual canvas. So a lot of times it's a mix. I mean, some things that I just make kind of sporadically, and then other things I really have to sit down and think about it very carefully before I do it.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Um, do you have a favorite piece of all time, or do they all mean
I
something to you at different
I
times?
do.
I do.
I would say my favorite piece of all time. I have three pieces right now, actually, that I really love, and they're currently on display at the Industry Makers, and it is a wonderful little shop in Huntington. It's a gallery, it's an art space, and I I absolutely love this place. And he has three of my best pieces. So my best pieces, they are sculptural wall hangings. They all hang off the wall. One is very tiny. It was actually just at the Huntington Arts Council for a show. Now it's back in industry. And that one's called Dance of the Treasure Chest. I have another one called Galactic Toy Box. And it's all like blue with like reds and yellow. So it looks like an outer space, literally like a toy box from outer space. And it pops off the wall like 9 inches. It's a big piece. It's a big, crazy piece. And then I just made another one, a little sapphire serene. But the three that are in Industry Makers in Huntington are probably my three favorites, my three strongest. Yeah. And that's why I bring them there, because the man that owns that space, Mano, he likes my work, and he's kind enough to hang it on the wall, so it's on constant display, and hopefully it constantly makes people happy. And then my most famous collection is the Bejeweled and Bedazzled collection. And that's a series of 7 pieces that were also started out being with the 10 by 10 art show. So I did the first 3, red, blue, and green. I did them in 2015. And then I did 4 pieces the following year. They let me put an extra one in that were orange, yellow, pink, and purple. So I had basically all the colors of the rainbow. And that's a series that I'm probably most famous for. So of those 7 boards, each one is like a color. And then they all have black and white in them and gold and silver in them. And I've actually created a series of shoes to match the art. And they've been featured at art shows in the city, including the Art Heart Fashion, which was part of New York Fashion Week in 2019. So that was fun, seeing the models walk with them.
So fun. That is way fun. So it doesn't sound like it, but has the pandemic interrupted your work or hit you in any way? I know that some people have been hit pretty hard by it.
In a way, I mean, I have not. I've been fortunate that I haven't been hit as hard as some other people. I really am very blessed for that. But certain things have been derailed. Like, for example, I normally show my art constantly at different libraries, and that has not happened. A lot of libraries closed down during the pandemic and weren't having art showing. So a lot of those shows got canceled. I was supposed to be at Art Expo in April, and Art Expo got canceled for April, but right now it's still scheduled for November. So hopefully that goes through. So that was more delayed than canceled. Other ways that I've been affected, I also am a teacher. I teach college, but I also design and teach my own writing courses. And I was supposed to teach a playwriting class at Studio Theater in Lindenhurst. We did it in 2019, and it was tremendously successful. And we were going to launch it again for 2020. And so far, haven't been able to do so because of the pandemic, but we're hoping by the end of this year we can. So I've been derailed a little bit, but not as much as I feared. Like, I actually did manage to pick up some like teaching jobs with libraries over Zoom, and they were actually really fun to do. And I've had time to sit, like I worked on this collection, and now things are starting to reopen. Like, I was just part of the Huntington Art Show, one of their art shows out there, because I just became a member. So, some things got delayed, but I mean, I was lucky that I wasn't totally derailed either. So I can't really complain.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's wonderful. I find a lot of people have figured out ways to pivot via Zoom, some virtual ways to do whole classes and stuff like that. So I think it's great that that's been something that you've been able to do as well. It's fantastic. And being secluded in your house, you've been able to do some artwork.
Exactly. And the fact that my pieces are small, that kind of helps me, just it makes them easier to store. And I've also found that my small pieces actually sell a lot faster than my big pieces, because I feel like people have more room for the small pieces. So
it's true.
So more desirability.
We know that you have the event coming up in November, but what else is on the horizon for you? What's coming up?
I have a couple of things coming up. So primarily, we really want to get the playwriting class up and running again when the theaters can reopen. I also have a play that is scheduled to run in Manhattan. It was supposed to initially be in June. Now it looks like it got moved to September. but it's a short play. It's with the Summer Fest at the Helton Guild. And it's basically about two ghosts playing chess, because essentially all of my plays are also very abstract and very kind of out there, just like my art is.
Yeah.
Whereas my books and my movies tend to be a little bit more straightforward, my artwork and my plays, I feel like I can be a little bit more out there with those. So I'm hoping that the play goes through, if not in June, in September, and then I'm hoping to get the playwriting class up. And then as far as my art goes, I'm still teaching a lot of classes, but I do hope to be able to show at Art Expo in November. That's like the next really big show that I'd be part of.
That's great. And then you have your YouTube channel. So how can people find that?
Okay, so my YouTube channel is called Artsy Creative Initiatives. You can also just Google my name and it should come up. I just got my website up and running actually, but my website is so new that right now, if you Google my name, Google is not showing, it's not showing up. But if you Google like Meagan J Meehan and then Google my website, like Meagan J Meehan website, it should come up. It's just meaganjmeehan.com. And we have links to all of my social media on there, pictures of my art. Basically everything I do is listed on that website.
Good, so, good. I mean, this has been, it's incredible. I'm looking forward to hopefully seeing you in person soon.
Oh yes, absolutely. I'll have to see if I can get you tickets to Art Expo, because it's a wonderful show.
I would love it. I would love it. And then we could bring you into the studio for a live interview at some point.
Oh, I would love that. I'd bring some of